Right now, the day's biggest news stories from a Vegas perspective. This is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro.
Welcome back to the Vegas Take Tuesday edition. Chris went in for Brian Shapiro along with J.D. Sharp live in studio and Pat Casale as well. We're going to get into a little bit of politics here. Of course, so much going down over the past couple of weeks and even more news in the last 48 hours and a focus on the Pentagon and on the armed forces, given the Secretary of the Navy, Richard Spencer, has stepped down. It's more of a firing, right, Pat, of, basically Mark Esper, the Secretary of Defense, letting go of Richard Spencer at the behest, of course, of President Trump. We would expect, given it, he is the commander-in-chief. So we want to get your phone calls and your opinions on this, because it's not just about Richard Spencer and the Secretary of the Navy stepping down. It is a broader issue. And hit us up on the phone line, 702-257-5396, with respect to presidential pardons. Now, Donald Trump has pardoned 3 military members. And with presidential pardons, look, it can get dicey, because whether it's civilians or in the military, a lot of these have been controversial. It's not just President Trump. There's been a lot of presidents who have issued pardons that were necessarily controversial and people had major issues with. And that's absolutely the case here with these 3 military members. Now, President Trump pardoned 2 Army, I believe one's an officer and one's an enlisted member, regardless, both over in theater. One was convicted of murder and was set to, I believe, was sentenced to 19 years. President Trump pardoned him. The other was in the process of going through his charges in the military court system, in the court martial, and President Trump pardoned him, and just basically that investigation and the whole process went away. And of course, the one that's gotten the most attention is with Chief Eddie Gallagher, a Navy SEAL who was convicted of posing with the courts of a teenage prisoner that he had allegedly stabbed to death with his hunting knife. He was acquitted of those of the more serious charges, but he was found guilty of the charges of posing with the corpse and was set, I believe, to be demoted in rank. And President Trump has now weighed in on this and has decided, look, that's not what we're going to do. And I gotta get your input, both JD and Pat and the callers out there at 702-257-5396. This sets a horrendous precedent, okay? Because the President of the United States, I don't know how you can justify, people who are convicted of war crimes. Pardon these people. Look, I get. Here's the deal.
Situation's a whole different ballgame.
Well, it's not a whole different ballgame. The obvious charges here are that he
had a
charged
photo
with
with
murder
a head of an ISIS killer.
Yes, which is no.
This guy was an ISIS
not
killer.
He was not an ISIS killer.
That's what they
he
said.
He was a prisoner. Okay,
no.
He was a prisoner of war.
So he cut up. Let me say this:
he could be ISIS,
this guy was if he was a prisoner of war, and they decapitated him.
There are rules of Pat. There are rules of engagement in the military,
and I'm going to sit here and tell you.
There are also procedures that he did not. You don't. This isn't something that
you're making a statement that this guy was a prisoner of war that was beheaded by Gallagher or somebody.
Those are the facts of the case.
What happened was this
wasn't an engagement in hand-to-hand combat
in the world that the President of the United States,
he was a prisoner.
Nobody would uphold
of the American
supporting
military.
A man murdering somebody who's imprisoned and cutting off their head in the United States. That would be absolutely incredible, and I would say
condoning. It's the President of the United States pardoning him on charges of him getting demoted in rank.
That part I can see. That's a whole different argument. This man was acquitted
it's not a whole different argument. It's part of the argument,
not as a murderer. He was acquitted for the murder.
He was acquitted for that.
Right.
That's not what President Trump
and he got in trouble for posing.
Is relieving him of.
He got a picture of him posing with the head Okay, maybe it's bad judgment.
It's against.
But I'm making him retire.
It's against regulations. You can't do it. You're not.
I understand that,
you
but
don't
at the same time, he's
see
retiring.
American soldiers overseas posing with corpses.
But do you see ISIL?
Of
Do you ever
prisoners
see
of war.
ISIL posing with our people getting killed? They cut off reporters' heads. Wait a minute. What's the difference?
That's not part of the argument. That's not an argument.
I'm going to sit here and tell you.
You're posing. It's whataboutism.
Esper fired Spencer for trying to do an end run around Esper to work out a deal that basically said we'll let him retire with everything. And that was wrong. He should have went to Esper first. That's what this is what it comes down to. He did an end around Esper to work out a deal with the White House, and Esper's like, screw you, you're out. Now,
I get that, but that's not.
The president's
that has nothing to do with the
action
pardons
towards
that
Gallagher,
the president
whose
gave.
record is amazing. Okay, he had a picture taken with a guy who was beheaded. If he did the beheading, if this was a prisoner of war, that's a totally different animal. I would hang the guy because that's different. That's not the United States of America. But I have to sit here and tell you, if he had his picture taken, it was in bad taste. We don't know the circumstances of what went on during that with that fight or how that guy lost his head. But I will sit here and tell you, we have a lot of our boys fighting wars around this world that don't really reflect on the United States that are getting thrown to the dogs. I mean, and I'm going to use Benghazi, but not like you think. We have men dying in America, Americans dying in Benghazi. We have guys dying in Syria. We're there fighting for everybody else around the world. And when we get our men get taken in or killed, they're celebrated. They're holding our heads and they're doing exactly what's terrible. But yet we got a guy again, it was bad taste. He's out of the service. He's going to retire. I get it. But I don't think. Now, the other two cases, I don't have the data
Pat, here's
on.
the deal. There's a lot of high-ranking officials, both retired and not retired, that absolutely disagree with you.
They're
Here's the deal. John Kirby, was on national television yesterday. He talked about this, saying it's deeply concerning. Again, we're talking about an administrative review process. The Navy SEALs do this all the time, and people get their trident pins revoked for much less than what Eddie Gallagher has not only been alleged to have done, but actually convicted of doing. And here's the other thing he points out. There are 3 other SEALs, by the way, that are in the picture that are going through the same review process that Gallagher was supposed to go through, but President Trump has just erased it. So what's going to happen with those trident pins? The point being is that there's been a number, I believe there's been a number of Navy SEALs that have been demoted or have run into trouble since 2011, okay? What are all those people now should be pardoned by President Trump
now,
because we want to take care of our. And by the way, the president, why does he have to talk like he's a 7-year-old all the time? Yesterday he was talking about saying I got to take care of my war fighters. I got to take care of my war fighters. What are you talking about?
Chris,
he talks like he's in elementary school at times.
Was the head that he was holding up? Did this guy kill one of his friends, one of his Navy SEAL friends, one of his compadres?
No, it's my understanding that it was a prisoner of war.
Okay, it sounds like a head for a head situation.
And he was killed in captivity, in American captivity.
Pat is very right. That ISIS does celebrate and advertise the fact that they have murdered an American soldier on a consistent basis, and it was in terrible taste. And it was definitely beneath our country, considering we're not a third world country.
You can't use that argument, though, that ISIS does it too.
I'm just saying that's
it's
why
ISIS. It's
no,
ISIS.
I'm not, Chris. I'm not making that argument. I'm saying that I don't agree with it, but I see why he did what he did. But again, we're not
making an
a
argument.
third world country. We are a worldwide power. And again, that to me, that is beneath us,
right,
as Americans to do something like that.
And he's being retired.
But I mean, you got to keep in mind these Navy SEALs. They go through a lot of grueling training. I mean, these guys, they go through the gamut, mentally, physically. Are they all
understandable?
Are they all mentally 100%? Solid upstairs.
After 20 years?
Probably not. They've probably seen some things that no one in this room would ever even dream of seeing. So again. Is it in great taste? No, but considering who these people are and what they do for a living and the missions that they, I mean,
you're making a judgment on what you think they should face as far as punishment.
No,
I'm making a judgment
Chris,
on a president of the United States.
I'm not making a
pardoning
judgment at all.
people who are convicted of war crimes.
I understand. Well, I'm saying he's definitely considering the circumstances. before while he's making these pardons. And again, these are Navy SEALs. I mean, what do they go through?
Hold on.
And the things
It's
that
not
they
just
see.
Navy SEAls, by the way. There's Army,
This particular
there's
guy-
Army
and
officers as well,
and the
too. There's
missions,
Special Forces guys.
The missions
It's not
that they play out. I mean, these are
Look, you guys,
very, very
wait a minute.
you guys,
serious.
by the way, you're speaking to someone who actually did go to basic
Right.
training in AIT and was in the military, and so I'm aware of the rules of engagement as well as soldiers on the battlefield. Look, I get it; it's hard, but you have to still follow the law. There's a chain of command, and there's discipline that goes into place with a soldier, not only in theater but also when you're in situations like this.
But in the Gallagher case, you're saying. Correct.
I'm not saying anything.
Wait,
I'm pointing out facts. You guys want to make your own opinion as to what it is.
It's not an opinion. I'm asking you a question.
Yeah, okay.
You're saying that the guy he posed with that was beheaded,
yes,
was a prisoner.
I mean, he was. It's my understanding that he was a prisoner of war,
if that were
and
the
that
case,
he was.
So then, if he was an
Pat,
wait a minute,
he wasn't. No, hear me out. He was not killed in battle. It wasn't like some type of battle that went down where he killed a prisoner.
So wait a minute,
because
if you're saying
otherwise there'd be no wrongdoing whatsoever.
No, here's the
what
deal.
would be the difference between Eddie Gallagher or any other SEAL or any other soldier on the battlefield? If this was if this was legitimate rules of engagement, he would not be in trouble. Why is he in trouble?
Wait a minute.
Because
why
he did something that was
They're
wrong.
saying here
That's
the
why.
The court martial.
You're making this way more difficult
and the
than it
jury
is.
found Gallagher not guilty, but
of
convicted him
of murder charges. Yes,
for the
of
lesser
murder.
charge. If this man was,
And look,
was
there was some
wait a minute. If he was a prisoner, if he's a prisoner of the SEALs, he's tied up. He's arrested, so to speak. Okay,
your argument doesn't. Pat, all due respect, the argument doesn't matter because
he was a wounded ISIS fighter.
You guys, you're making an argument that doesn't need to be made. He was not convicted on the murder charges. I'm not upset about Gallagher getting off on the murder charges. I'm talking about the president restoring his. I'm taught for taking a picture.
He was convicted on the picture
for taking the picture.
And he was demoted.
That's it.
He was demoted,
and all he got was rank demotion.
Yes, no, but he didn't because the president pardoned him on that.
He was by the court. He was demoted.
You guys are making an argument that you don't need to make. I don't understand why you're making the argument.
He got reinstated by the president. Right here.
It's not the argument. That's what the debate is. That's what the controversy is that the president shouldn't have restored his rank. He should have still been demoted, and he still should face consequences for his actions.
Spencer wanted to reinstate him, and he did the end around with the president. He was going to reinstate him. And the reason Spencer gets fired. Because Esper
that's pissed. A different issue, though. You're talking about why the secretary gets fired. I'm talking about the president of the United States with these
wrong.
These are controversial pardons.
He didn't do anything wrong here.
The president. Pat, you're going in circles here. I don't understand what you're talking. 702-257-5. Let's go to the phone lines. I got to get some other takes on this. And by the way. I know you guys are going to call in, you Trump supporters, and you're going to start going with Barack Obama pardoned this person and Bill Clinton. No, Pat, I'm telling what the caller's going to do. I already know what some of these callers are going to do. They're going to call in and make excuses as to why President Trump should be able to pardon whoever he wants.
I don't want to hear that either. I want to talk about this particular case.
It's about to come, Pat. 702-257-5396. Brady joins us here on the Vegas Take. Brady, what's going on?
Good morning, gentlemen. I want to bring up, you brought Obama up, so I'm going there.
Of course, I knew you would, Brady, because I know you would.
Brady, just talk about it. I wasn't going there, but you brought it up, so let me just finish 1 second.
Brady, you're killing me.
I brought it up as a joke because I figured
me.
that, maybe you guys would steer away from it because you sound ridiculous if you want to start, comparing pardons.
Well, you had to remind me, but I'll make it really short. There was I think a couple years, 2 or 3 years back, there was a guy, I think his name was Major Batey or something. He was in prison because he had a firefight and he wiped out a whole bunch of people in a room in Iraq. They were covered in shrouds and gouts. He didn't know what thing people had underneath them. And he blew a whole bunch of people away in a firestorm. And he was sent to prison for a long time. But that man was pardoned, not by the help of Obama or Biden. It was people that were conservative and people that loved our military that stood up and got him released. And this is the same example. You would tend to defend a guy in ISIS who was a known.
I'm not defending any ISIS. Hey,
people.
Brady, are you telling me that I'm defending a terrorist? Because if you are, that's BS. I'm not at all. Okay, I am someone who's actually served in the military. Have you served in the military? Have you been there? Have you signed on the dotted line? and said that I'll go over and fight for our country? Because if you haven't, then you have no business talking to me that way. All right? A, B, you have no idea. Why am I defending a terrorist? I'm talking about
the militia, brother.
Hey, here's the deal, Brady. If you actually do war crimes on the battlefield, and you actually conduct war crimes on the battlefield, you should be convicted and you should face the consequences.
So you
okay?
want 3 gentlemen to go back into the brig and spend the rest of their life because they took a selfie with a dead IED.
Did I say that? Did I say that he should go for the rest of his life in prison because he took a selfie with?
I would agree.
With a corpse.
If he committed a murder, he should go to jail for the rest of his life.
No, here's the deal. Here's what should happen. Eddie Gallagher, for taking a picture with a corpse, should be demoted in rank. That's it. Okay? And he was demoted in rank. And the President of the United States said, you know what? You're not going to be. I'm going to take care of you. And he took care of the other 2 Army officers, by the way, who were convicted of war crimes and murder.
Not the story here right now.
One was convicted of murder. One was going through the process.
I can't go there because this has only been about Gallagher.
Well, I know the information about it. I know the details.
I can't give you
guys don't. Brady wants to sit here and call me defending a terrorist, which is ridiculous.
You mentioned being in the military, and you know that's cool that you did that. But you mentioned the rules of engagement. How do those rules apply to secret missions like the ones that Navy SEALs and Delta Force?
Well, I wasn't in Special Forces, so I'm not going to speak specifically to what it is.
How do rules of engagement apply to those particular secret missions?
Here's the deal. You can't take pictures with dead corpses. You're not supposed to commit war crimes, okay? You're not supposed to murder.
Did you not take a picture of
JD, you're asking me the question. I'm answering the question.
I know. I understand.
Rules of engagement, I would not expect. Look, off the top of my head, I would not expect rules of engagement to be different with Special Forces people in theater as opposed to other soldiers in theater. I would expect all of it to be relatively the same. It's not. They don't have any. Let's put it this way. I don't think Special Forces members, SEALs, Green Berets, Delta Force, they don't have any extra leeway when it comes to committing war crimes than any other soldier.
There's a lot of controversy, and I'll tell you right now, Gallagher is being retired. Is being retired after 20 years, and I have to be honest, I don't think he should have been punished and stripped. I don't think Gallagher should be punished. Yeah. That's my opinion.
Yeah, 702-257-5396 is the phone line. Let's go to Josh. Josh joins us here on the Vegas Take. Josh, what's your take on all this?
Hi, how's it going? As a former Marine, I wanted to talk about all of the responsibility is on our government. They sent him to war. They trained him to kill people. That's what we did, and now we're like, oh, but you have to act like this perfect person. That's unrealistic.
Well, it's not necessarily perfect, right? It's just don't commit war crimes and don't do things that are against regulation, which would be taking a photo with a dead corpse of what is expected to be a prisoner of war, right?
Modern age war crime.
That's all I'm saying here. Look,
a digital war crime.
And Josh, I get what you're saying.
Not a war crime you could make in World War II.
Almost 20 years serving our country, who has been in multiple combat,
right?
And what is the most we can ask of somebody to do for our country, and because he took a picture, you want to take away his rank?
Look, Josh, I'm not disparaging his service in any way.
No, you're being
JD, let me finish my point. You guys cut me off right in the middle of my point. I'm not disparaging his service in any way, okay? But that does not give you the right, by your rationale, you're saying, okay, because he served our country admirably for 20 years, there's no possible way that he could commit war crimes. There's no possible way that he could do things that are against regulation. And it's just not the case.
He broke the regulation and given him a pass.
And people do make mistakes.
Right.
Well, there's called degrees of mistakes where you're punished accordingly. It's a mistake. Look, I'm not saying the guy took a picture with him next to a corpse. I'm not saying he should be thrown in the brig for 20 years. I'm saying he should be demoted in rank, which is what he was.
And they reinstated him. What's wrong with that?
But that's a very good point. You don't know what this guy's done. You don't know how many missions he's carried out that have helped every single American.
That's not relevant to whether.
But it is.
Why is it relevant to if he commits a war crime? Why is that relevant?
You're saying this one little thing, which is to me is kind of a little thing, totally outweighs every positive thing he's done in the military.
Who said that?
Well,
I didn't say that.
If you're demoting rank, that's what you're saying, right?
Demoting in rank is he's demoted in rank. It's not. You're not throwing him in the brig for 20 years. You're not.
Doesn't make
you're
a
not,
difference.
You're not dishonorably discharging him. You're not.
But if his rank is being demoted, then the things that he had gotten credit for,
it's not life or death.
No, it doesn't make a difference, man.
JD, you're saying it's life or death.
Still demoting the rank.
It's not.
And what Trump is saying and what Trump is doing here is saying this doesn't matter.
It's equal punishment for what it is that you did.
But he's
you guys are making it out to be like it's so horrible.
That's all it was. It'd be one thing if he was back in active duty. He's being retired, so let him go out. Let him go out gracefully. Big deal. He made a mistake. Nobody else should do it. Just like the other guy that went to jail for taking a picture on a submarine. I mean, come on. You know what's
you're minimizing the whole argument though, and the whole debate. It's not about whether or not he can go off into the sunset.
This was an ISIL killer. This was a guy who's with ISIS. Now, the other two cases I can't even argue with. I just don't think this guy Gallagher should be disgraced.
It sets a horrendous precedent going forward in the military. What does this mean for the ranks? What does this mean for discipline? What does this mean? What does this mean? What's this mean for chain of command? When you have, when you have Eddie Gallagher going. By the way, Eddie Gallagher has been going on national TV left and right. Basically, playing the victim as if he's done absolutely nothing wrong, and this is just a bunch of higher ups that are out to get him and destroy him. Look, no,
defending other countries.
What does that have to do with what I just talked about? It has nothing to do with it.
Is there murder? Is there killing going on?
Absolutely, there is. Absolutely. I don't understand what you mean by killing. You're making a general statement.
No, when you're in a battle, I'm shooting at you. Somebody's going to die.
100%. Pat, what does that have to do with what we're talking about here as far as the controversy regarding
having a picture
the commander-in-chief pardoning people that shouldn't be pardoned?
Having a picture taken with the head is a dramatic. Oh, it's terrible. Yeah. It's horrible.
Much more of this on the other side. We got phone calls. Phone calls are lit up here, 702-257-5396. Your thoughts? Is it okay? President Trump, he should be able to pardon whoever he wants, especially when it comes to the military. Chris went in for Brian Shapiro, along with J.D. Sharp and Pat Casale on your Tuesday.
Now back to the Vegas Take on 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDON.
Brett Baer, Fox News, on the way back, talking about the polling regarding the 2020 election. We've talked to J.D. about this a lot. Pat, I haven't necessarily talked to you as far as, what the capabilities are of the Democratic candidates come 2020. If they do go up against President Trump, each individual one, it'll certainly be interesting to see who ends up getting the ultimate nod on the Democratic side. But I digress because we got a heated in conversation regarding this resignation or firing, basically, of the Secretary of the Navy, Richard Spencer, and President Trump and Mark Esper's role in that, and the triangle that went on with respect to the White House, and of course these controversial pardons with President Trump, with Eddie Gallagher and two other, I believe they're Army servicemen. One that was convicted of murder. I believe he shot 3 Afghans who are riding on a motorcycle and basically just assassinated them. He was convicted of murder. I think he was set to serve 19 years, and President Trump decides to pardon him. The other one, I don't necessarily know the exact details, but apparently was going through the process of the court-martial, and President Trump also pardoned him too. So basically it all goes away as far as the process and the charges there. And then, of course, the one we've been talking about with just Eddie Gallagher. Now, look, and by the way, we're not even mentioning President Trump from an aspect of what his motivation is on this, because we understand what President Trump is about. This is someone who likes to pump his chest and show how tough he is and show how much power he has, whether it's presidential pardons, whether it's executive orders. President Trump is a guy who likes to show how powerful he is. He likes to go out there and flex his muscles a bit. And this is a perfect example of that also. And you can tell by the way he talks about this whole scenario with Eddie Gallagher and the other servicemen that he's pardoning. You saw what happened when he pardoned Sheriff Arpaio in Arizona, how that all went down. And it was almost like Donald Trump was, flipping the middle finger to Americans out there by saying, look, you may be convicted of wrongdoing and you may do things that aren't right, but I have ultimate power here where I have the power of the pardon. and I'm going to exercise it.
So here's the deal. Matthew Goldstein, when Army Special Forces
Exactly.
officer,
He's the one that's still in the process,
now,
right?
For killing an unarmed Afghan that was believed to be a Taliban bomb maker. Now, if that was proven that was true, I'm sorry, that guy deserved to die. That's me.
Well, you're making a judgment based on what the guy
I am
was
making a judgment
described
based on
there.
that.
But
no, it said here
under the rules of engagement, you're not just allowed to shoot anybody just because you may think they're, a criminal, or you may think they are a member of the SS or a member of the Taliban or a member of ISIS or name your opponent. You just can't shoot people
that the United States
out of the blue.
America fighting wars with rules and regulations, with handcuffs, but the enemy doesn't?
Hey, it's called because we are better than them, Pat. Have you ever seen the movie The Siege with Bruce Willis when he was an Army general, and also Denzel Washington was an FBI agent? Remember the scene where they had an actual U.S. citizen who happened to be Muslim, okay, who might have had information regarding the terrorist attacks that were going on in New York City. I don't know about a lot of our listeners. If you saw the movie The Siege, there's a bunch of terrorist attacks in New York City, and they have to lock the city down under military martial law, and they're trying to find the people that actually perpetrated it. So, long story short, Bruce Willis, who is the Army general, ends up torturing and murdering a prisoner who is an American citizen who has been convicted of nothing. There's no due process whatsoever. They just basically apprehended the guy, happened to be a Muslim American, and they murdered him, or they tortured him and murdered him. Denzel Washington ends up at the end of the movie bringing up the general on charges.
Right.
Okay. Because you're obviously violating the civil rights of this American citizen by torturing and killing him. So the point being is we as Americans and as part of the Constitution, we do not operate in the way that ISIS does.
So when we had the Geneva Convention during World
Islamic
War II,
militant people,
and the Japanese or the Germans took American soldiers captive and they shot them in the head, they lined them up and they killed them, or they threw them overboard with an anchor around their waist, or they just tortured our men.
The American soldiers.
American soldiers getting tortured.
Saving Private Ryan, right? Where they had soldiers dig in their own graves, and they would just shoot them, right? They would have German soldiers, basically, dig themselves a hole.
So you remember that?
And then
do you
they would
remember
just shoot them in the head.
It's a great. Remember that guy?
Not supposed to do it.
The guy they let screw Hitler. He said, "Well, I can't use the proper word on the radio," and they let him survive. And what's he turn around and do? He starts killing Americans again, and that guy. Opham shoots him at the end. Lets the other guys go, but he kills that guy.
Same Private Ryan, right? The German soldier, they let him go, and he ends up killing.
And so the bottom line is, when you're
Jonathan
in war,
Silverman's character in the movie,
you kill your enemy until the war is over. Because unfortunately, your enemy, allowing them to survive,
there's rules engagement.
They will come back.
You can't just willy-nilly do whatever you want to do. It's not just about us versus them, and there's no rules. There are rules.
Listen, if everybody plays by the same rules, we're on the same side. You and I agree. But unfortunately, we're dealing with a society over there that doesn't believe in those rules. There's no such thing as rules and regulations. And what they do is they get our guys and they torture them to death, which is one of the reasons why I never believed a woman should be in the front lines. I have no problem with a woman serving the country, but being put in the front lines, if they get captured, the things that they could do to a woman are far worse than they can do to a man. And I don't agree with it. That's just me.
702-257.
How I am.
5396 is the phone number. Your thoughts, your opinions on this. Do you think the pardons are justified? Do you think President Trump is out of line? And your thoughts also on the firing of the Secretary of the Navy. Let's go out to to JD. He's on the CGI guys hotline. JD, what's going on?
What's up, JD?
JD's I think he's listening to the radio. And he might be another spot in his house.
Yeah, so
JD, we'll try to go back to you, okay?
Hello, JD.
702-257-5396. Hit us up here on the phone lines. Kevin joins us now here on the Vegas Take. Kevin, we appreciate your phone call.
What's up, Kevin?
Yeah, guys, I don't understand why you guys are having a hard time with this. It's called rules of engagement. Okay?
Exactly.
The Geneva Conventions, there's all kind of things that are set. Your soldiers are not, you don't cut them loose. That's why we have the UCMJ, we have the rules of engagement. We don't cut people's heads off just because they do it to us. But worse than that, you've got a president, you guys are going to back your president to the end, but you're just diminishing the military's, the honor, code, conduct, all those different things. You might as well just throw them out the window because you say you're dealing with a society now that does this kind of stuff. So you're just we're just making our soldiers mercenaries, murderers. Next thing you know, we'll have a house full of kids.
You didn't hear me clearly. You didn't hear me clearly.
Burn the house to the ground with the kids in it, right?
Young man, let me just say this to Mr. I don't know your name. I apologize.
It's Kevin.
Kevin, let me say this to you. I did not acknowledge if this man beheaded if this was a true prisoner of war and he beheaded him, they should hang him. I agree 100% behind that. Okay, that's not the case here. The case is he wasn't found guilty of murder. He was being demoted for having a picture taken with the head. And I'm sitting there saying I have no problem with him getting reinstated and retired. That's my point. Other than that, now if this was about a murder, now that's not the case here, because if this was a murder and Gallagher actually beheaded a prisoner of war who was defenseless, I absolutely think that Gallagher should be taken out and shot.
Wait,
no problem.
Pat, you're saying you're making a distinction though that's not exactly how things go down. So you're saying he should be reinstated. So what's wrong, Pat, then with him getting his demoted in rank and then retiring? Is that fine with you? Are you okay with that? Because that's what I think should have happened here.
No, and I'm saying he was demoted and he got reinstated by the president.
No, what that means is, why is President Trump have
to... The very fact that he took the picture with the head is just disgusting enough. That's dishonorable right there. Okay, the word dishonorable. All right, let's just really look at that. We don't do that type of stuff. If a cop takes a picture of a suspect and cuts his head off, and he didn't do it, but he took the picture, he's done. Come on, guys. Well, how far do you guys want to bend before you just break all the rules of just human decency?
Yeah,
I'm sitting here telling
Kevin,
you,
I'm in your camp.
He made a mistake, but I look at his 20-year record and I give him a slap on the wrist and fire him.
His 20-year record doesn't matter when it comes to war crimes or when it comes to if you're in a court martial. Pat, if you're in a court martial, he wasn't court martial. No, I'm saying a court martial is the process where you're going through the the investigation process and the trial. The court martial's not just one thing, Pat. It's in the military. A court martial is when it's convened, where you basically have lawyers and you go through the process.
But he was not found guilty, other than
he was found
taking
guilty
a picture
of taking that picture.
And I agree. He took the picture was wrong.
So then you agree that he should have been demoted and not pardoned by the president.
No, I didn't say that.
Here's the deal.
I think he was found guilty, and I think you could give him a pardon, like you would do in a lot of criminals, and he gets to go away. And that's what's happening here. He's not being able to pursue
So you're
his
saying,
career.
so you have no problem with the pardon, then, is what you're saying.
I have no problem with the pardon.
Like Kevin says, we're making this much more difficult than it is.
I have no problem with the pardon. Not with that pardon.
That's fine. But I have a problem with the pardon, and I have a problem with the pardon the other two guys, too, also, for different reasons.
And I can't...
And by the way, this whole thing, President Trump doesn't have to weigh in on this. There is a process in the military where you have the chain of command.
The president in.
The president brings himself in because the president pardons people he doesn't need to pardon.
Spencer went around, but Spencer
went to the White House. You're saying President Trump has to pardon these guys? President Trump does not have to weigh in at all. He can leave it alone.
I think what President Trump did is he took the side of Defense Secretary Esper.
No, President Trump weighs in on his own his own account. He doesn't have.
Spencer, by your own admission, was going to give the guy the pass anyway, and didn't want the president's intervention, that's fine.
No. Spencer wanted to keep him demoted.
No, Spencer was going to reinstate him.
No.
Read
That's not the facts. No. Spencer wanted him to be demoted. After the fact that the president got involved, then he went to the White House and wanted to set the deal up where he's like, look, if we keep this on the down low and this doesn't become something that blows up in our face, we will, let him allow to keep his trident pen and basically retire. But that was not Spencer's original intent. Spencer's original intent was to go with military justice and the whole process
Spencer
here
just talk to Esper? I make that deal with Esper. The president doesn't get involved.
I can't answer that, but I can. The reason why he went to the White House is because President Trump gets involved. This was my point, Pat. I just told you. President Trump did not have to get involved. He didn't.
But did they involve him? Did Spencer involve the president?
Trump did it on his own accord.
No, he didn't.
And that's the bottom line.
Said the president was involved because Spencer went to him.
No. I'm talking about all these military pardons. These three guys that got pardoned. President Trump did not. From the outset, Pat,
firing
he didn't need
occurred
to get
over
involved.
Gallagher, not the other two.
But you're talking about a firing of the secretary.
The secretary got fired over Gallagher. The other two pardons is not the same thing.
257-5396 is the phone number. Ron joins us now here on the phone lines. Ron, we appreciate the phone call.
Hey, what's up, Ron?
Gentlemen, it's a wonderful day in paradise.
Yeah,
yes,
right,
sir.
Absolutely.
talking about cutting heads off. Okay, now let's make two examples. You got a gentleman just spent 6 years in one prison, spend another year or so, I guess, in another prison. Okay, for that picture. Well, okay, I saw another picture on TV about a comedian, and she had the President Trump's head in her hand, Kathy Griffin. How come she hasn't put any time in jail for sedation against Mr. Trump?
Well, you're talking about two absolutely...
No, we're talking about the same thing.
Ron, you're talking about two separate circumstances regarding American civilian... Okay. Do me a favor, Johnny, pot him down for a second. Hey, Ron, okay? You're going to make a comparison to a military justice and to something that happens on a battlefield with soldiers and prisoners and or combatants. And you're talking about Kathy Griffin, a comedian who posts a picture, which, by the way, she faced a lot of repercussions as far as her career.
A lot of money.
And a lot of stuff, lost a lot of money. And we do have this thing called, freedom of speech here in America, which, by the way, I think a lot of people, both on the left and right.
That's freedom of speech? Because someone showing a beheaded?
No, you know what I'm talking about as far as, this wasn't... So what do you think Kathy Griffin should face when it comes to that type of deal?
Well, she's facing it now, so it's all good.
So you think she should face what Ron says? You can pot him back up, Johnny. So, Ron, you think Kathy Griffin should face the same type of consequences that a soldier should face for
7 years in jail? Like that
okay, sounds good. Hey, Ron.
Against President of the United States.
Yeah, it sounds good, Ron.
No matter what his name is, it's who she dishonored.
Ron, we appreciate the phone call. 702-257-5396. I mean, if you don't understand the difference, then I guess if you don't know, you don't know. 702-257-5396. JD joins us now here on the phone lines. JD, what's going down?
What's up, JD?
Hi, guys. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you're great.
Chris, I'd like to take you back to your statement. You said the third guy. The third guy's name was Lieutenant Lawrence.
Yes, absolutely.
The third guy was a platoon commander when 7 of his men on 2 prior occasions, his position was charged by a motorcycle bomber who blew up his men and killed him. He shot and killed the third motorcycle guy on the presumption that he had a suicide vest and was going to kill him and more of his platoon. So he was totally justified. And for you to say...
No. JD, time out. JD, I'm not arguing with you about the circumstances. He went through a court of law.
Said he assassinated 3 people.
Yeah, that was what I actually read. But here's the deal, JD. You can tell me about the circumstances, okay? He went through a tribunal. He went through a court-martial, and they found him guilty of murder. And I believe that there were people that were actually with him there that helped put him away, if I'm not mistaken. People that were actually there were part of the process.
Chris,
so you're arguing about details about them being
without cutting me off.
Well, no, because you're trying to make a comparison as to the details. Are you trying to justify
anything other than one sentence? Let me finish.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Number one, he was attacked 3 times. 7 of his platoon members were killed. He killed the third person. There was the witnesses were Afghanis against him that brought his trial to conclusion, and where he got the 19 years in Leavenworth. Now, would you agree, any of the 3 of you on this panel show today, that anybody accused of a war crime under horrific battle conditions in combat, because I don't believe any of you have been in combat, would have to be tried by combat JAGs or combat lawyers, not lawyers and bureaucrats in the Army, Navy, Marines, or whatever, who have never served on the battlefield for 1 hour?
I think you're looking for perfect conditions right there, JD. As far as what as far as like the type of people,
Chris,
JD. Can I answer, JD?
You're also looking for perfect behavior,
this is not,
Chris.
Yeah, perfect behavior. So now he was convicted, and so you guys don't think he should have been convicted of the crimes in which he is accused of. Is that what you're saying?
And 7 of your buddies were beheaded.
I understand the circumstances you're talking about.
You would definitely want to do the exact same thing.
At the end of the day, JD, he was convicted of murder and sentenced to 19 years in prison. Okay? Now, you want to talk about the circumstances. Okay, there's plenty of, and I'm not one of them, okay, but there's plenty of guys that have served in combat that do not commit war crimes.
How do you
This
know they
person
didn't get
was.
away with- how do you
Okay,
know they
this
didn't get away
JD,
with
it's
them?
a very simple. It's
They
very
got away.
JD.
We
I'm making a
committed
very
crimes
simple
in the
statement.
Second World War that got the men got away with them. You have
I understand,
Lieutenant
JD.
Allen.
You want to make excuses or rationale
cannot
as to
put
why
yourself-
he put the why he
cannot
did
put
that.
Yourself in their condition in the time of battle, in the heat of battle.
I understand that. I completely understand that, but that does not justify war crimes. How many times do I have to put that? It does not justify.
And that's why
JD,
a pardon is in
JD,
order.
there are plenty of other guys that are in theater that fight in war that don't commit war crimes. Okay, this individual
We're not all
did.
made the same.
Period. End of story. So I mean,
We're not all made the same.
Oh, that's
why.
Well, that's not a general statement or anything. That's not. That's statement.
When someone commits an act
Absolutely
like
not.
this,
We're not made the same. Okay.
Under those conditions, that's why a pardon is in order.
JD, appreciate the phone call, and I
thanks for the
absolutely
call,
100% disagree with you. That's not why a pardon is justified. Okay. He's the third. Let's put it this way: out of the 3 people that President Trump pardoned, the guy that JD was trying to back up,
it's just
has
interesting that
the least argument
you have
having a pardon.
You
without
have
question.
you have these borderline animals that are part of ISIS who have who have no problem.
JD.
Chris, let me finish,
Okay,
bro.
well,
all right. Thanks.
But you're making an argument that I agree with you. I agree with you. So I don't understand.
Okay, I don't have an argument. Fine, continue.
JD,
no, I'm good. I'm fine.
Finish your point, and then I'll respond by saying I agree with you.
You know what I'm going to say, so I shouldn't say anything.
Yeah, you're saying that there are animals out there, and that there are people out there that are looking to kill us, and that they hate Americans, and that they want, and that war is something that's so unpredictable, and that you have to be able to give leeway to soldiers, right? Soldiers should have some type of leeway. And you're saying, and
I'm just saying you can't.
Am I wrong? Is that what you're going to say?
You can't expect perfect behavior under these circumstances,
There's
Chris, because they're very, very unusual circumstances, and it's very, very hard to operate perfectly. Which is again what a lot of Democrats expect is perfection, but at the same time, you expect. I mean, you have to fight.
It's not Democrats, by the way.
Of course, it is. You have to.
Not.
You have to.
This is not.
You have to fight.
You
have to fight fire with fire. And when someone is being completely borderline inhumane, which ISIS is on a very consistent basis, and they're killing your friends and they're beheading people that you're in combat with, you're going to want to respond in kind. And I think Donald Trump recognizes that fact. Is it a war crime? Yes. But considering what they're dealing with, I'm not saying it's justified, but I see where they're coming from.
Well, you're saying
that's a great point.
You're
That's
saying
my point.
But there's a huge difference, JD, between perfect behavior and committing war crimes, okay? And it happens all the time on the battlefield. And you don't even have to be in the military or be former military like myself to understand that, okay?
No, and in some situations,
when you commit war crimes, there are consequences.
Okay, but in some
I don't understand why that's hard for JD to call or to figure out.
In some situations, it's sending a message. And that's
sending a message for what?
Sending a message. Hey, you're gonna pose with my friends. You're gonna pose with my beheaded friends. I'm gonna pose with yours. Again,
that's not Chris, not how we conduct ourselves, though, in the military.
I understand. I understand, Chris. But again,
should not be the approach.
You mentioned how you conduct yourselves, but again, did you fight anywhere? No, you didn't fight anywhere. So you wouldn't know that.
I'm talking about we as
military.
Americans.
I understand that,
not me.
These are special forces. People who are involved in missions that again the things that they see and the things that they go through and the training that they have. I mean, it prepares them for all these situations, and in some cases. I mean, you have to respond in kind to what you're dealing with, and I believe that's kind of what happened here.
It's not just special forces guys that fight in war. There's a lot of other guys that aren't special forces that fight in war, and whether or not you're special forces, and you could make the argument, by the way, that being special forces, you would be more in tune.
Held to a higher standard.
You'd be held to a higher standard, more in tune to what it is you're able to do as you conduct yourself on the battlefield and in the military. It is the Vegas Take coming your way live here on a Tuesday. Chris Wynn in for Brian Shapiro along with JD Sharp and Pat Cassell. Much more of this on the other side of the break. We'll also get into the news of the day regarding the impeachment inquiry and also some other stories, too. We've got to get JD's take on some of the 2020 candidates as there has been some new entrants on the Democratic side as the Vegas Take continues on your Tuesday, 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDON.